Hi, I'm Leanne Ely. I'm a nutritionist, a New York Times best-selling author, and some people even say I'm a life coach. I started the Daily Dish Show to share my story, my truth, and my journey to vibrancy, and to inspire others to do the same. Because it's all about grit, perseverance, and finding a way despite the odds. It's about embracing the whole woman, not just the parts that are easy to love, and feeding her heart, mind, body, and soul. But I found that this isn't just my story, it's your story too. It's go time. This is the Daily Dish. We've been talking about this garbage quote, you know the one that I'm talking about, right? Anyone? Do you know the one that I'm talking about? You want to be it till you see it, not fake it till you make it. Fake it till you make it's garbage. And we've talked about why. And now I'm going to roll this whole thing together because wise women gather on Wednesdays, don't they? You do. You're here. Wise women know that living authentically is the only option. It is the only choice. We need to live authentically. Authentically means being genuine, being real, warts and all. Not perfect, but doing the best work that we possibly can with the lives that we have been given. That's what we can do. You have to understand too that authenticity, for authentic, first of all, is the quality of being genuine or real, while authenticity is of undisputed origin. I love that, of undisputed origin. In other words, you are the origin of that origin, right? It's all about you. And that's important because without you, this world is different. Without you, you have a ripple effect on everything that it is that you do and say and that you are. And that's on purpose. Every single one of us have that kind of an impact on another person in this world. We all do. We don't live alone in these little buckets. We all live together, impacting one another. Isn't that an amazing thing to think about? Wrap your head around that one. I think it's just beautiful. The other thing is that we are not a copy of anything or anyone. We are our own genuine article. So to be authentic, you have to be, of course, true to yourself. Everyone else is taken. You ever hear that one before? You can't be someone else. You got to be you because everyone else is taken. So that means being true to your values, your personality, your spirit, your ideals, not lining yourself up with someone else's. Here's the thing. I have oftentimes people say, well, what do you do, Leanne? What do you eat? What do you have? What are you this? And I know what that question is about, because if you're doing this, I'm going to do it too, because I've done that. And honestly, this is why I always say, here's your framework of what you need to do essentially, like for the Hot Milk Sprint. And then, last week I was doing a coaching client and she said, I just don't like X, Y, and Z. And I said, then we're going to adjust it to do this instead. We're going to adjust it with what you do like. And guess what happens when we do that? That's when we get to go into the unique authenticity of who you are and customize this to fit you. You don't have to fit it. I'm going to repeat that. You don't have to fit it. It has to fit you, right? The good stuff anyway. We can't fake that part in. We can't say, that it's not going to work, that it's going to work, with Snickers bars in it. No, it's not. The big moving parts though, if there are parts that don't work for you, we can fix that. We can always fix it because it has to be customized to fit you. How do you like that? So your honesty is your moral compass. We know that. Your core values really are the things that we need to wear on our sleeves because that's who we are. And when you show up as you and not some copycat of someone else, you cannot help but be irresistibly loved for your authenticity, for your weirdness, for your goofiness, for your scars, for your sense of humor, for all your things. This is how we get secure in who we are, by understanding that we were put here on purpose and for purpose, and the way we are also on purpose and for purpose. Mhm. You ever think about that? You ever think about that? It's not to presto changeo all the time. Yes, we want to do things better. Yes, we want to get up to the next level. But all of that is living a life. That's really what it is. But we're being called to a genuine life. We're being called to authenticity. We're being called to live our very best lives, and we cannot do that unless we're being authentic. Think about that's a heavy statement, but it's so true. And it's all encompassing when you think about it. Because sometimes we don't, maybe we'll say, "God, I don't even know who I am. I don't even know what I'm about. I don't know how I feel about these things. I just know that I'm here." That's enough sometimes, because we need to have a starting place. But I know that wise women know this already, don't you? You do. I know you know this already. You know this already, and you practice this probably every day in your life, don't you? But psychologists tell us that authentic living shows up in 7 different ways. I'm going to go through these because I think it's important. Because maybe if you're thinking there and questioning, am I living an authentic life? Am I showing up? Am I being it so that I can see it finally in my life? Or am I just, is it a big charade? Am I faking it so much that I just don't even know who I am? Authenticity is the call on your life. And I'm going to give you 7 different ways that you can see how it shows up in your life. Number 1 is that authentic people have realistic perceptions of reality. In other words, they don't spin the truth to make it fit their bias. Now, we all to a degree do this. We look for things that support a bias that we have. But if we're going to be honest and we're going to drop the being rightness all the time, then we are going to seek the truth with everything that we have, even if we don't like it, because the truth will set you free. That's the Bible tells us this. And it tells us this in a number of ways. The truth will always set us free. The truth sets us free from so many things. When we finally know the truth and the light is on the truth, the darkness falls. We know that. So this is why we have realistic perceptions of reality. This is what goes on with people who are authentic, wise women like you, like me, showing up daily. Number 2, they accept themselves and they accept others, even when they may not understand someone else and what they're all about, even when they disagree with someone else and what they're all about. They're not intolerant. They're not ugly. They're not mean. They're not calling you sheep or some other gross thing. Yeah, I had somebody call me a sheep the other day. You're just a sheep. Am I? Well, bad to you. Why do people do that? Is it to make them feel better than, or one-upsmanship or whatever? But I just say that, you know what? You know what love is? It's to live authentically. You know what love is? It's to live with a full heart. You know what love is? Love is empathetically loving others, even when you don't get what they're about, even when you don't know why. It doesn't matter. They're a human being. They're called on purpose and for purpose too, weren't they? Why are they here taking up planet Earth? Why are they here occupying their little corner of the universe? What if we started being a little bit more tolerant with others? Aren't we? Aren't we all God's sheep, and he calls us by name? Amen. Yeah, not goats, and separates the sheep from the goats. So, okay. But there you go. Number 2, they accept themselves and others. I just went through that. Number 3, they are thoughtful. I love this one. Thoughtfulness shows up not just in gifts and lovely, I remembered your anniversary or things like that. I mean, that's important stuff. I mean, doesn't it feel awful if somebody forgets, or your husband forgets your anniversary or whatever? But they speak kindness. They think kind thoughts. They think inclusivity. Like, how do I bring this other person in? Does everybody feel included here? This takes practice. We're not necessarily born to do this, but this is how we live authentically and true to the calling that's on our lives, I believe, because thoughtfulness is kind. Thoughtfulness is listening, it's consideration, it's caring. And without that, what happens? We start getting into that mean groove that's out there. It's mean out there. Awful, isn't it? Turn on the news and you'll see what I mean. Mark had the news on this morning. I said, you just have to turn that awfulness off. You just have to. And he's like, oh, well, I just want to see what, and I said, okay, go ahead. And I just left the room, I just left the room. I choose not to go there because I know what this is going to do inside of me. I don't need that. What I need is more of the stuff that is missing in this world. I need more of that. And I want to be the perpetuation of that. Have you ever thought about that? How can I offer more love? How can I offer more care? How can I live more authentically? How can I make sure everyone feels included? Have you thought about that? That is beautiful because that's the missing component. That's the missing element of what's happening. It isn't us versus them. It is us. And we all have our ugliness and we all have our blemishes, but we all have an opportunity to be beautiful human beings created on purpose and for purpose in a genuine, authentic desire to include all people and to allow for people we don't even agree with or we don't even have to hang out with them. But we don't have to be ugly. We don't have to be mean. We don't have to be wicked and speak ill of others. What has gossip ever done to help you? Anything? It sucks the energy out. It sucks the wind out. And we've talked about living high vibe versus low vibe lives. That is the lowest of lows, is to go into that place and to elevate yourself, and while you're putting others down, it's shameful. And I don't use that word lightly, but it is shameful. Number 4 is, this is a big one too. And this one I felt convicted about. Being funny without the passive aggressive edge. And I'm talking about toward yourself, toward others. No belittling, insulting, embarrassing, butt of the joke type stuff, passive aggressive stuff, put downs like this. Well, they're disguised hostility is what they are. Disguised hostility, but being funny, wink, wink. Do you think that's funny? I don't think that it has any place in an authentic life. Not even this much. Because when we're doing that, it's at the expense of someone else. Why? To elevate yourself so you can put someone else down? Yeah, we keep our senses of humor. I mean, we can be funny. As a matter of fact, Nancy loved my makeup tips. I saw that. Thank you for that, Nancy, by the way. She loved my after 60 makeup tips, which, by the way, you can only find it on TikTok. I did it on TikTok. But it's just, that was poking fun at myself. It was poking fun, but that wasn't hostile. It was just funny. It was just being silly, Nobody got hurt. It wasn't aimed to harm someone else. It was just saying, here we are after 60. I don't understand all this stuff. We can do that, but we can't do it at somebody else's expense. That's not right. Number 5, we are expressive. We're able to say, what's up? Right? Hey, how about this? We're able to also emote freely about what's on our hearts. That hurt me. You know what? I felt that was a little unkind. And we're careful with our words and saying it in a way so that we know that whoever is the listener, the recipient of these words, aren't going to feel put down, shut down, and disregarded and dismissed. Nobody wants to feel like that. Nobody does. But we need to be able to emote freely and clearly. We need to be able to express our feelings. We don't want to bottle them up and shut down and, hold a grudge or have hostility towards someone or think ill of them. Sulking. How about that for 5 years old? Right? I don't think wise women behave like petulant children. I think wise women have gone beyond that and have seen themselves in a different light and hold themselves to a higher standard than that. Because doing so is to live authentically. Doing so isn't faking it. Doing so is being it. Amen. That's a pinkies up right there, by the way. Pinkies up. This is a level up of living a life that is authentically yours and a life beautifully lived, yeah, as well. Number 6, they're humble and able to admit they are wrong. When's the last time you admitted you were wrong? You know what? I was wrong about that. I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. You know what? You're right. You did that. You said that and I didn't listen to you. Or whatever it is. How many times have you done that? I think it should be part of our regular thing. I remember the very first time I did that with one of my children, and it just hit me like a ton of, I was short-tempered. I was unkind. I was sharp. Maybe my voice was a little bit too loud. Maybe. I'm sure it was. And I got down on eye level, and it was probably Caroline. And I said, Caroline, I am so sorry. And you remember when you talk to your children in third person, mommy shouldn't have spoken to you that way. And I'll just never forget those little eyes looking at me like searching my soul. Searching my soul. Children bring you to that place, right? There's a naked honesty there. That's just amazing. It sears you, it goes right through you. And I will never forget that. I remember exactly where we were. We were in the kitchen when we lived in Costa Mesa. Peter was a baby and he was on his little bouncy car seat. And Caroline just would not leave me alone. And she's holding on to my, and I just finally just said, Caroline, stop it. And I just shook her off my leg. She fell on her butt and just started wailing. And it wasn't that she hurt herself. It was just that she couldn't get my attention. And I finally recognized this and I saw that. And I got down on her level and I looked her eye to eye and said this. She was barely 2. But there was that connection there and I got it for that minute. Not that I did it ever perfectly again after that. But it was just, how it is with children. It's a lot when you're raising babies. It's a lot. That doesn't dismiss us from humility. That doesn't dismiss us from admitting we're wrong. When we're in the trenches, we're in the trenches. But I believe with all of my heart that if we're willing to learn from those mistakes, those become less and less. And I do believe as I went on, they became less and less because I didn't want to be in that place of having to constantly tell my children that I was sorry for something that I did to hurt them. If I had to do it over again too, there's a lot of things I'd change, right? I mean, isn't that what parenting is, by the way? Parenting is like, yeah, it's tough. But I will tell you that as women who are wise, living authentically means that we have the ability to pull back a little bit and to analyze and to figure out what goes into the experience file to teach us the lessons we need to learn and the stuff that needs to be tossed that we don't need to be reliving over and over again. We can do that. We can make that decision as we go. Noreen, you're right. Noreen says, parenting is learning as you go. I always say it's like making pancakes, and sometimes you're too eager to flip the first one and it's not cooked all the way through. There's a lot to learn along the way. And you're responsible for these tiny humans, right? And thank God they're resilient as they are because, we mess up so much. Parenting is just a reflection of all the garbage that's inside of you still, I think. It's a mirror. But the thing is that we can analyze what's going on at any time. And if we have this as a habit of like, hold the phone, what's up here? We can pull back, we can analyze, we can pull the goods out that are going to serve us so that we don't find ourselves in the next time because we've learned a lesson. That's an important part. We don't need to roll around in the past and constantly trudge up all the dreadful memories of the trauma or whatever it is. But we do need to extrapolate what is the lesson that what can I take from this experience? You know? Radical acceptance was one of my biggest things that I had from my own childhood that helped me to move on and not, and even from my adulthood, I have relationships with my, siblings that I wish were better. And I have radically accepted that they are what they are. Radically. I'm not going to make up and spend my time in a place of making up what I wish it were and going to Fantasy Island. Instead, I'm going to stay with radical acceptance and love them up and pray for them and do the best that I can because that's all I can do. I've done everything that I can. That's all any human can do. And the rest, then we need to move on. There's other things to be done with that energy. You are called to this life on purpose and for purpose. Keep that first and foremost in your brain as you're going forward. And anything that holds you back from that, you need to rethink it. You need to rethink it. Seriously, if there's nothing that can be done about it, rethink it. Number 7, wise women have clear motivation for following a path. And I believe that is to do better, to be better, and to love more. To do better, to be better, and to love more. There is always room at my table for one more person. There is always room in my heart for more love, always. And same with you, because this is the call that was put upon our life by God himself when he called you into this earth. I want you to see yourself as that special woman, because you are. I want you to see yourself as a woman here on purpose and for purpose, because there's no other reason that you're here. That's huge. And if you're going to dwell on something, dwell on that. So that's what I have for you today. I was thinking about that a lot because we want to be living our lives in a way that is vibrant. We want to be living our lives in a way so that our lives can always be a reflection of God's love for us. What about that? If you're pouring yourself out and he's pouring yourself in, can you imagine the beauty of that? That is a continuum that needs to happen to everyone around us. And we're around it and we're helping to create it, then we're part of the solution and no longer a part of the problem. That's what we need to be doing. So let's start this creation, shall we? Let's create lives that are on purpose and for purpose. Let's create lives that reflect this love. We have a call, a heavy call on our lives. And it's up to you whether or not you're going to answer. And I don't know about you, but I'm answering that phone. Thanks so much for joining me today. Peace be with you.
Thank you for joining me today. You can find me on TikTok for daily tips to help support your most vibrant life. And remember, you are the author of your own story. Until next time.